Okay guys, so we're going to start on a video build today, and we're going to be starting on our Africa Core Panzer IV here, the E version. Now this is a 3-in-1 kit from Dragon, and I haven't even opened this box yet, so you guys are going to join me when I open it up. We're going to do this guy here in the desert. We're going to have it fairly well worn, so hopefully with this build we're going to be able to go through and I'll show you how to do some chipping techniques and things like that, and some nice worn and weathered techniques for the desert. So obviously being desert, it's going to be that nice dusty sort of look as well. There is a crew in this kit. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the crew or not. I'll look at how good the crew are in this, and if they are pretty good, I may put a crew in there as well. But we'll open the box now, and we'll just have a look at what we got inside here, and we will start doing our build. Okay, so when I'm opening the box, I just use these old knives here. They cost $1 for 3 or something at the local shop, rather than use my scalpel. Because if you use the scalpel for this, all you're going to do is just wreck the blade on the scalpel by opening these up. I just put it across on the back of the package like that, and just peel that packet clean off there, and I can go my bin to the side there. As we see with this kit, guys, it's fairly involved. It's not a simple 10-minute build. This is like a typical Dragon kit. There's quite a few parts. You can see here in the road wheels and stuff like that. It's not going to be a simple build. It's going to be fairly complex. I'll go through. There's a bit of photo etch in here too. It's going to be good for me to show you guys about how I work with photo etch. I'm no expert by any means with photo etch, but I can sort of struggle my way through it, and I'll just show you the ways that I found to work with it. I'll also show you about cleaning up the kit as you're building it, and also this kit here, because it's got different options, a 3-in-1, we'll make the choice as we go through and decide what exactly it is what we want to do. The side of the box here again shows you some of the detail. Now these Dragon kits are second to none. They're absolutely beautiful. Like the detail on these is incredible. But again, guys, you got to have a few model skills behind you before you sink into one of these. The detail itself is not easy to do. It takes quite a bit of work, and because you've got etch in there, if you haven't built a model before, this is definitely not a starter kit. Okay, this is something you've got to do after you put a few kits together. And I found with a lot of Dragon kits, they're not a perfect fit. There is a little bit of sanding and a little bit of cutting and stuff to get pieces to fit together. But yeah, we'll go through all those techniques as we go through this build, guys. So what we'll do now, we'll just open our box up. A little bit of tape on one end there, that's all right. Okay, put that in there. So first up, there's our crew, guys. And they actually don't look too bad. I'll just quickly grab my glasses here because I'm getting a bit old and blind. But I'll have a look at the glasses, and they actually look quite nice, guys. So depending on how I'm going for time and that, I may actually put some of this crew in there. Hopefully that camera can focus for you there. Some quite nice detail on those guys. Yeah, but we'll see how we go with those. Okay, we've got a few little etch parts and stuff in there. We've got our barrel and some shells, and yeah, it's quite nice. There's some nice detail in there, guys. This is typical Dragon. You open the kit up and it's just chocolate block. It's just full to the top with stuff. So our tracks, the individual track links, I'll go through and show you the technique I use putting those together too as we go through. Look like the rims around our road wheels down here. A bit of photo etch on the back of that packet there. We've even got a bit of cactus here. Okay, now that's a really nice touch. That's going to allow us to be able to build a really nice base, and actually got cactus in the pack to put that down. Very, very nice touch. A couple more road wheels. Got our clear parts in here. Got the ends for our steel rope, our towing cables and things like that. And going through more odds and ends. Got a housing for our things. We've got our guards down here. Front plate. Okay, all the middles of our road wheels. Tunnel face. Now this kit here, I have actually seen another variation of this. Now all these parts are just, you see there's just a ton of them in here. Now every one of them that I'm looking at, they're just beautiful, guys. This is typical Dragon stuff. Beautiful detail. All your injection pin marks on the insides where you're not going to see them. It depends. If we're going to put a crew in here, obviously I'm going to have some of the hatches open, so we'll show you how to get rid of those pin marks. We're going to see them. Some of our tools on there, very, very nicely moulded, as you'd expect from some of these Dragon kits. Okay, top of our turret there. Again, beautiful, beautiful stuff. We've got all our matching points there. Very nice. We've got some more of our crew here, guys. Yeah, we've got our, with our long overcoat and stuff like this, obviously commander and stuff that we have outside the tank, and all the rest of it's fairly standard, guys. We've got the bottom of the hull there, we've got the top, we've got two bases in here, obviously because we've got two versions, so we will we'll work out exactly what it is we're going to need as we go through this. So what I'll do, guys, I'll get the instructions out here. I'll have a bit of a quick look through these with you now, and then I'll go through them in a bit more detail. I'll turn the camera off and go through a bit more detail. Okay, like I was saying, that just putting the road wheels together on this thing is fairly involved. This is not a starter model by any means. You can see here these are fairly involved, and there's obviously a few options there. You've got your options here, 1, 2 and 3, whichever one you want to build depending on what you put together. And another thing with Dragon is all the parts that go on here. These are not like Tamiya kits where a lot of this is moulded onto the hull. With Dragon, it's individual. You put these together and put them on yourself, so it actually means there's quite a bit of work in them. Your chain's hanging down by your back exhaust here. Again, these are etch. There'll be another good opportunity for me to show you a bit of etch work. Up the top on this page here, we've got a bit of etch as well. So hopefully with these guys, I'll be able to show you a little bit of folding work with etch, how I use the folder, and also if you haven't got a folder, because they're not a cheap tool. So I'll fold some of these up without the folder, just so you can see that you can do it without having to have all the gear. Now the lights down here, like a lot of these Dragon kits, you have an option. There'll be a plastic part in there that you can put the light on with the plastic part, or you can cut that plastic off, that's what those two symbols mean, and use an etch part on there. Okay, now I'm going to try and use the etch parts on these where I can, because it just gives it a lot finer detail. Okay, the plastic in these is nicely moulded and it's fairly thin, but it's just so much more realistic if you can put the etch on there, hence why they include it in there. The rest of the instructions here, guys, are well, as you'd expect from armour. All your top plate, all the gear goes on the top there, all your tools on this next page, then laying your top plate on your bottom. Okay, you've got a bit of an interior here, all your the inside where your turret is, where your gun is. Beautiful, guys. So that means we're going to be able to open the top of this thing up. You'll be able to see in there. If I put a figure in the hatch, obviously it's going to be a bit hard to see in there. So I might try and get the figures so they're not actually sitting on top of that hatch, or have a side hatch open and some sort of light so we can see in there and see that beautiful detail that's going to be inside this kit. It's a good opportunity for me to do the inside of the kit as well and show you how to weather up the inside of the kit. Over here we've just got all the add-ons like your jerry cans, your tow cables, all those bits and pieces that go on your spare road wheels. Then we've got our paintings on the back here, our markings on the back, and we're going to go for the desert version. I'm not sure if I'm going to use these decals yet, guys. I'm going to check the decals out, and Dragon decals are normally fairly good, but as we go through the build, guys, I'll keep you up to date as to what we're going to do. So what I'll do now, guys, I'll turn the camera off. I'm going to get all my stuff laid out off to the side here, get my instructions laid out on the table, and we will start the build. Okay, guys, so one of the first steps we've got in our kit here is putting these road wheels together, and we've got an option with these guys here. We can either use our etch parts here, just forgive the dirty fingers, I've been playing with paint again, so we can either use the etch parts here to continue these road wheels, like finish them off, or we can just use plastic parts. Now the plastic parts look okay, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you guys just a couple of simple ways of working with etch, some of the things that I do. Okay, so the first thing we need is we've got to cut these guys out. Okay, and what I do, I just use a sharp blade. Now this is a brand new number 11 blade in this knife. You can put a black Nico down the tip here so you can see the tip. I don't worry too much about it because I've got my goggles on. Now all you do is just sort of drag the blade until it's right against the edge of the part and just push down like that. Now you have to be careful what surface you do this on, because if you do this on a really soft surface, it'll actually push the part down and bend it before it actually cuts through. So underneath here I've got some fairly stiff board underneath the paper, so all it's got to do is pretty much cut through the paper. So it'll bend a little bit, but it won't leave an indentation or won't leave a dent in the part. So again, we just push, I'll put the tip in there, push it over against the part and just push down. But don't push too hard. If it feels like there's too much resistance, don't keep going. So I should be able to lift that up, and as you can see, that part is just falling out of there now. Another thing you can do, you can put some tape underneath this. If it was small parts like these parts in the centre, when I cut them out, I put tape up underneath there. I know they're not going to sort of spring away from me when I cut them out. These are bigger parts, so they should not spring away. But if you're doing fine parts and you're cutting them out like this, put tape underneath so it'll hold onto those parts so they don't spring away on you. So I'll just quickly cut out the second one so you can watch me do it. Again, push up against the part, just push down. Okay, again, put the blade in there, push up against the part, push down. One more time, this is our last tab, push down, and out it comes like that. Okay, so that's easy enough, guys. And then the next part of this is where those tabs have been cut off. There's not much there because I've used a nice sharp blade and I pushed up against it. There's not much of a tab left on there. I'm not sure if you can see this. Please forgive my fingers, guys, they're really grotty. I'm just hoping this camera will pick that up. I'm not sure if you can see. You can't even really see a tab on there, but there actually is one on there. So what I'm going to do, I've just got a file, just a needle file here, a fairly fine one. You don't want anything too rough, just something fine, because if it's too rough it'll grip onto the part. And I can see the tab there, I can feel it with my finger. So, and as you draw the file across it, don't just draw it straight, go around the part like this, like twist these fingers and this hand like that, so it does a nice round file. It doesn't just leave a flat spot on there. Okay, and again there's another tab there, around we go. Okay, not drawing straight across it, just nice and round. Okay, we should have one more tab, and there it is right there. And I'll just draw that off. Sorry guys, this is going in and out of focus, I'm sorry, but yeah, this camera's not the best. So around we go, like so. Alright, now what I'll show you on the second one is I've just got some 400 grit sandpaper here, and it's the same deal. I just feel for the tabs. I'll feel one just in there, and I'm just going to run over with the sandpaper like so. Okay, now because I'm pushing with my finger, it automatically bends the sandpaper around that part, so I'm not going to have a flat spot in there. So I'll fill from the next one, which is there. Now there's a fair bit of a tab there, guys. I normally wouldn't do this with sandpaper, but I'll just show you, you can actually do it with sandpaper even if there's a bit of a tab left there. And like I say, this is 400 grit, so it rips into the part fairly quickly, so that once you get that tab down, don't keep going, otherwise it will tear into the part. Now there's the last one there, and we'll just give it a quick rub like so. Now you should be able to feel through the sandpaper. You'll feel it sort of gripping when that tab is still there, and you'll feel it let go when the tab is gone. So that's those parts already done. They're nice and smooth. Now these two parts are different. You see in the centre part here, this one here has got a flat part inside the centre, this one hasn't. And if you look at the road wheel, one side's round, the other side has got the flat part in it. Now all I do to stick these parts in, guys, I'll do the round one first. Now off to the side here, all I've got is just some cheap super glue. This stuff here, I get like $1 and you get 4 tubes. I've just squirted a little bit of that super glue up onto a little piece of plastic on the side of the camera here that you can't actually see, but it is there, believe me. And then all I do is I use a toothpick to grab some of that glue. Now the glue's dried up somewhat since I put it on there. You don't want a lot of glue for this, guys. If you put too much glue on there, it's going to like hold that part away, like it'll hold the etch part away. Okay, so I've got the glue on there. I don't want my fingers anywhere near it. Now sort of line it up where it's got to go, drop it in, and then push it down into the part like so. Okay, now that glue that I'm using is just it's fairly thick. It's like probably a medium type of super glue. So the outside of this has not stuck down, but because I've gone right out to these outside parts with that glue out to here, it's holding it down enough that you won't notice it. Okay, and there's enough glue in there that'll hold that part on. If you really want to, if you're really worried about that part springing out, you can get the super fine super glue, like really runny stuff, and you can use your toothpick and just drop it down on the sides here, and then the capillary action will draw it around. Okay, and one of the things I don't recommend when you're using super glue is to use what they call a kicker. I use kicker quite a bit if I'm filling seams and things like that. Now what a kicker does, put super glue down, spray it with a kicker, and it sets it instantly. The problem with using it with etch parts like this is that when it sets that glue, it makes it very brittle. Okay, and it's easy to break. If I had used like a bit of glue in there and I put a kicker on it, it'd be very easy for me to just put my finger under there and just pluck that clean out. It would actually pop out of there because that glue would be so brittle. So that's one of the reasons why I don't use it. I do use it in certain circumstances. If I'm filling seams or something like that, I will use a kicker because I want it to dry so I can sand over that seam. But generally I don't use it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to do the same thing I've done with that other one, guys, just glue it in there the same way. The next part of it's going to be the road wheels. I'll turn the camera back on then, and we'll go through a few of the things that we're going to do with the road wheels and how I work with those. Okay guys, so just a couple of quick tips here. One of the things I have to do with this part here now is to put these little centre pieces in. I'll push them over here so you can see them a little better. Okay, and that one as well. So I've got to put those in the centre of these two wheels. Okay, now they can be a bit of a pain to pick up because they're tiny, and you've got to sort of put them in the right way because we've got these flat edges in here. They have to go in the right way. If they don't go in the right way, they're just not going to sit down flat, and it just won't look right. So what I'm going to do is just show you a little trick for handling parts like this, these smaller parts. Now all I've got here is just a tube of this this sticky glue stick stuff, and all it is just like really tacky looking stuff in the end here, and I just get a little bit of a coat of that on the end of a toothpick like so. Okay, I'll flip these over so they're the right way around, and all I do is I can pick them up like that. Now I can see where that flat edge is, and I'll just lay it inside there like that, and down it goes. So I'm just getting this in the right position. It's sort of hard to do this with the angle the camera is at. Okay, you leave the glue off this toothpick will actually still be in those parts. So what I'm doing now, just off to the side here, put a toothpick. I'm just going to dab it in water. Okay, and make sure it's not too wet. Okay, and I'm just going to clean the middle of that part out. Okay, the water will actually dissolve that glue that's in there. It's a water soluble type of glue. All these glue sticks normally are. Now I've got a fairly pointed Q-tip here which pushes down in the part, and it just cleans all that stuff out. Okay, and then I'll use the other end just to dab up the excess water that I've left in the middle there. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you is what I do with all my part sprues. Now because there's so many sprues in a kit like this, I mean it's just endless. There's just, you know, there's a heap of sprues there, and it's really a pain sometimes when you're going through and you're thinking, got to find this part, and you're going through 30 sprues trying to find that part. I just put these sticky labels on each sprue so I can see the letter, the corresponding letter on there fairly easy. And in that box I've got pretty much the same colour in this box, but normally I use different coloured tape, and so it stands out. After a while you get to know that the pink is the blue, the green is the A, and whatever, but I've only used the one colour on this, and it's just to show you guys that's quite a good little tip, because it can be painful in a kit like this with so many parts and so many sprues, trying to find the sprue that's got that part on it, and without having to refer back to that front page that's got all the sprue layout. The other problem with that sprue layout, looking back on the front page, It's great when you first start, but once you start removing a lot of the sprue parts, you look back there and it's hard to correspond to it, because you really are looking at either the shape of the sprue or the shapes of the parts that are on it. So this is just a handy little tip, guys, when you're building a complex kit like this. Put tabs on it, and it just makes it so much easier to find the sprue and the part you're looking after. Okay guys, we'll turn the camera off. We'll come back when I get on to the rest of the road wheels. Okay guys, so we're up to the point where we're starting to put the road wheels and stuff onto the side of our hull here. Now this piece here is the first piece I've finished. Now it involves quite a few parts. Okay, now the only thing I've got to do is put the road wheels on there like so. Now I'm going to put those on last. I'm not going to worry about putting those on just yet. But now to put that piece together, and so you can see on the instructions here, it's quite a complex piece. Now this is what I was saying about if you're fairly new to putting models together, this is probably not the kit for you. Okay, now if you're going to do this kit, guys, make sure you read this instruction as well. Right, this is not a simple thing to put together. This part here goes together just to make that part in there. You've got to follow these arrows to make sure exactly where all the pins line up to get everything in there. Now it doesn't have anywhere in there where it says not to glue these parts, but if you glue them together like it's pretty much saying to do, okay, if you glue them together like the instructions are saying, like there's nothing there to say not to put glue on them. If you put glue on there, you won't have this movement that I've got here. See this road wheel set I've got here, where it moves up and down, and when we put the tracks on we can move that around. If you want it running over some rough terrain or something, we can do that. If you put glue on there, that's not going to work. Now the way to do it is to put all the assembly together. Everything glues together bar this piece here. Now when you put it on, there's 3 pins. There's one here and there's one for each one of those, there and there. I only put glue up around here and in that top pin, okay, and enough glue so that that's stuck down nice and tight, and make sure the glue doesn't run down into these pieces, because if it runs down there you're not going to have that movement. Now the other thing is, while we're at this stage here, and again forgive my hands, they're fairly grubby, I have cleaned these road wheels up, but I'll just show you how I do it. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. You can use a needle file, but again if you use a file on a round part, don't just drag it straight backwards and forwards, okay? Just around like that, so it goes around the part, okay? Don't drag in one direction and backwards and forwards, okay? It's got to move around. So I done them with the file just to get the seam that was down the middle of these parts, and there is a seam in these parts, and we'll get that to focus a little bit for us, okay? So when you first get these parts, there's a seam that runs around the middle here. And to get rid of that, that's what I use the file for. The other thing is, I just got some 800 grit sandpaper here, and I just run over it. And again, don't go straight backwards and forwards over one spot. Nice and round like that, so it's going around the wheel. Okay, if you go on one spot, obviously you're going to end up with flat spots on there. So that's those parts. And the other, guys, is these little road wheels that go up the top here, the little idler wheels. Okay, now they're obviously going to go up into here eventually. Okay, I'm looking at this little strange angle. So they're going to go up on there eventually. Now they're the same thing. In the middle of these parts, when you get them off, there's a seam in there. Now what I do, I put them together before I do the sanding and cleaning up, because if you do them one at a time, you're sort of doing double the work. If they're both together, you can sort of go over them both at the one time like so. Okay, and just clean both up at one time. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to continue on, get all these road wheels together. I won't put them on the tank yet. What I have done is these parts here, which are on the instructions as to over here, these first 2 parts, I've put those on there. It just makes it easier to get this part on there. So I'd recommend, if you're doing this kit, put those 2 parts together, put them on the tank, and then go from there. Okay, just makes it a little bit easier if they're on there, and you've got, you know, it's not moving around the table or anything like that. It's stuck on this hull, and it's got something for you to hang on to. Okay, guys, so I'll keep on going with these road wheels, and I'll see you in the next stage. Okay, guys, so I've struggled my way through getting all our road wheels together, and I've just put them all into a plastic bag here off to the side so I don't lose them. I'm not going to put those onto the model at the moment. I'll just keep those over there for when we do that part. We've got all the suspension set up here, and like I was saying in an earlier video, I haven't glued most of it except for these caps, the tops of these caps, so that everything moves. If you glue it as you're putting it together, you're not going to get that movement. It's nice to have that because we might set it up over a bit of rough terrain with the road wheel sort of pushed up over rocks or something like that. So not too much of a drama, a little bit fiddly to go together. Like I was saying, you've got all these steps up here just to put those together. A little bit fiddly, but you know, if you've done a bit of modelling, a little bit of fine handling, that's fine. They go together well. So we're up to putting the back plate together, putting all the parts on the back plate. Now I've got these two housings done on the back plate so far. Now just to put those housings together, you've got these steps over here. Now this is what I was saying about these not being a simple kit for beginners, because normally if you had, say, like a Tamiya kit, this would probably be moulded into one piece and already be on the back here. And as you see, the amount of detail that's still got to go on there, yet there's a bit of etch goes on there, like a few chains that hang off the back there from the exhaust system. So there's a bit of work still to go on there onto that plate. And this is what I say, it's not a simple kit, guys, and you really do have to follow these instructions, read them carefully, because it's so easy to miss out on little pieces. There's so much going on just in this part here. It's easy to miss like a small cap that goes on there, or you know, it is easy to miss parts. So, but the good thing about having these kits like this, it does make them look much more detailed. This having gone together in smaller pieces, you can see they are separate pieces, whereas like a Tamiya, if it's moulded into one, you can see that it is just one moulded piece. Okay, these guys here give you that appearance of separate pieces that have gone together on there, which is fantastic for these kits. Okay guys, so just another quick tip here, just going through these, like when you're working with things that have really small etch parts or delicate parts, whether they're plastic or whether they're etched basically, if you put them on now as you're building this up, it's just something else that you're going to have to be careful when you handle. It's just so easy to knock those parts off. So what I tend to do, I leave them off until I've got most of the hull together and I'm ready to paint. I like to have everything on there when I paint, so everything gets that coat of paint. I don't like adding them after the paint. So in order for me to not forget the parts that I've left off, like in this instructions here, I put this tail plate together, the back plate together, and it's telling me to put on these Photo-etch chains, which hang off very, very delicately off the back of here. And there's another one off the back of here somewhere. So I don't want to put those on now, because I just know when I handle this they're going to be too easy to knock off. So what I do, I just get a thing of paint, or if you want to, you can just use like highlighters if you like to do this. But all I'm going to do is just get my toothpick, which is off to the side here, just a dot of paint, and I'm going to put a red dot there and a red dot there. Okay, and that shows me when I go back through the instructions, I can see easily, okay, there's a red dot there and a red dot there, there must be parts I've left off. So it's easier to find those parts that you want to go back and put on later on, because it's too easy to miss, especially with something like this. There's so many delicate parts I'm going to leave off on the way through. If I don't mark them, it's going to be a nightmare going through every step, looking at every little part to see what I've missed, what I've left off there. So that's just a quick tip for that. The other thing is, guys, using the paint, obviously that's going to take a little while to dry now, and so I can't turn the page over everything. But when you're using instructions like this, I'll just pan out a little bit for you. Okay, when you've got sets of instructions like this that have so much detail in them, what I do like to do is have two facing sheets. Like so, I'll turn that over now, so I've always got two working sheets in front of me. The idea behind that is, if I'm working on this side here and there's something I'm not sure about, or just even if it's not that, even if I just want to quickly look ahead and see what's going on further on down the track with these parts that I'm doing, if there's options and that, you can want to look forward and just see what happens further on in the build. It's just handy having something in front of you on the other side that you don't have to keep flicking back through your instructions to find it. It's good if you've got a lot of space and you can open them out even more, but I tend to make sure at least have two pages facing me. And you know, when you're putting your road wheels on, you want to see if there's going to interfere with anything later on, so you can look forward. Same putting delicate parts on. Okay, do I put them on now, or does that have to be moved later on, or put on later on, where it's going to be a pain with all them delicate parts hanging off it? So just a quick tip, guys, it's always good to have some steps laid out in front of you, so you know what's coming, what's heading your way. Okay, guys, as I go through any more little details, I'll turn the camera back on and I'll catch up with you then. Okay, guys, so we've got the base of our hull done now, and it's come up quite nice. There's, like with a lot of these Dragon kits, some really nice detail in there, as you can see. Hopefully that camera's going to stay in focus. It's been playing up a little bit, zooming in and out for me. But as you can see, that comes up fairly well. Had no real trouble with anything. Everything seems to have sort of gone together very well. The only part that I could probably warn you about maybe is down here, these guys here, these little plates underneath, they weren't a really good fit. Now what I've done, they were close but not quite there, so what I've done is laid them on top, put a bit of glue down in these seams, let it soften for a little bit, then just push down on it, and it was enough to get them to seat home like in the correct position. Make sure you follow the instructions, because they do have to go in certain places. If you try and put them in the wrong spot, they really won't fit. But other than that, everything went together fine. All our plates, like the tail and the front plates here that went on, we know sometimes with kits you can have trouble getting those to fit, and there's a bit of filing and stuff, but basically they went together fairly well. I had this tail plate here, I did have to trim a little bit off the inside down the bottom here, but generally it wasn't much. It was just a little nip, just took a little bit of plastic off and they slipped in there fine. But yeah, other than that, guys, it went together well. Now that's the last we have to do on the base. The next step here on the instructions down here, step number 6, now goes to the top plate that sits underneath the turret. So that'll be our next bit of the video, working through putting the top plate together. But as I say, guys, shouldn't be any problem putting that part together. That's fine. Looks nice when it's done, plenty of detail. And I'll start on the top plate. There's a bit of etch work here that hopefully I'll be able to show you a little bit of etch work and how I work with etch. But if I come across anything that's worth showing you, I'll turn the video back on. Okay, guys, so I've hit a little bit of a thing here that I should be showing you as we go through this. If you ever build this particular kit, these two guys here, we've got our facing plate, which has to go over your main plate on the side there. This is for the side. It will go down around the side of our hull here, around there. Now there is a couple of holes you have to drill out there and there, and you've got 2 pins that meet that up. Now that's fine as long as you drill those out to the correct size. But the other thing I found is in here you've got some injector pin marks. Now the problem with that is some of those have got raised edges. Now if you don't file these down or sand them down, it actually holds that plate away a few mil, and you can actually see that the plate's not sitting snug against it. So all I've done is just run the file over the top of it like that, just to knock off any bits that are sticking up where the injector pin marks are there. Okay, and it doesn't hurt. You're not going to see any of this, so the file marks aren't going to matter. Now this is one of the important things about dry fitting, guys. If I hadn't dry fitted that, I wouldn't have picked that up until I'd put glue on there, and it would have been too late. Then you would have had to pull it away with the glue and made a real mess, and you would have had to wait for that to dry, to sand it all down to get it to fit properly. So dry fittings are a must with these sorts of kits, especially when they're so common. Okay guys, so we've got a little bit of Photo-etch work here. All I've done so far is I've bent these hinges up, which have to go onto the side of our tank, and I've tipped them up the right way. I've just flipped that one back over, but that's alright. So I've got them already bent. I just used my little tool here to do that. Now you can use flat nose pliers and stuff to do this. You don't need to have one of these tools, but they are handy. I can put all 4 in there at once and bend them all and things like that. So they are handy to have, but you don't necessarily need one. You can use flat nose pliers. Tamiya has a really good set of these guys here, Photo-etch type things. But again, you don't need all the expensive tools to do it. You can do it okay. So they're already bent up. Now what I've got to do is take these parts and put them up onto the side of the hull of the tank. What I'm going to do is just show you how I do that, working with fine parts. You've got to be careful playing with tweezers and stuff, because fine parts like this, if they slip out of the tweezers, they'll go twang and they'll be gone, and you will not see them again. They will be gone forever. Yeah, if you do find them, you're one of the luckiest people alive, I'm telling you. So I've come across this little technique I found on the internet, quite a while ago. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to zoom out. So just give me a second to get out of there. Okay, now all I'm going to do, I'm going to have a little bit of super glue off to the side. You won't be able to see the super glue, but that doesn't matter. It's just a little puddle I've got sitting on top of an old CD that I've had lying around the workshop for a while. I just use that for like putting super glue and paints and things like that on. I'm going to have a toothpick, this guy here, and what I'm going to do is one end of it, one end which is flat, this guy here, I'm going to stick into the end of this glue stick. Now what that does, it just puts a little light coating of that glue on the end of that stick. Now what that does, it makes it really easy to pick up those little parts. Now what I'll do is with the other end is going to be my glue application end, so I'll dip that into the glue. Now I always take off the excess by putting it on the plastic first. I just put the glue, just take off the excess, put the glue where we need it, up here, like so. And my part, this guy here, I'll pick him up and I'll put my tank up here so you can see it properly this time, and I just put it on there. The super glue will grab it. The super glue's hold is obviously stronger than what the other glue is, and you've got a little bit of time. I use like a medium set sort of super glue. I don't use anything that's fast set for this sort of thing, so it gives you that little bit of time to play with, and that one there is fairly straight. I've already done the other side here, as you can see at the back there. Now Photo-etch is one of those things, these little fine parts, it's one of those things that if you do it right it looks great, if you do it wrong it really does, it can ruin a model. Okay guys, so we got one end that we've dipped in the super glue, and we're going to put the super glue up here where we want to locate the part, like so. The other end, if I don't drop my toothpick, let's dip into the other glue just to give it a tacky end, pick up the part that we want to locate, okay, and just put it up where we want the part, up there, like so. And like I say, the super glue I use is a medium set, so it gives you a little bit of time to play with it like that. And we've got one more to go, so I'll just tip him up the right way for me to pick it up. Okay. Again, one end into the super glue, put the super glue where you want the part. I just drag down there to get most of that super glue off. I don't want a big puddle of it there. Pick the part up on the end of the toothpick and just place it where you want it there. Okay. A little bit of time to play with it to get it nice and straight, like so. Okay, and that's it guys, that's just how I put small parts on. It's fairly easy. Sometimes it can go astray because the glue stick glue gets a little bit tacky and funny and it won't let go of the part and things like that, but generally works fairly well. Like I say, there's one here that's fairly crooked. I'm going to take that back off with some acetone, and I'll reset that one. But yeah guys, that's how you handle these small parts with things like that. Okay guys, so what we got here is a couple of etch parts that have to be soldered together. Now you've got one part that comes in here, the other side comes in there, so we've got to try and solder this joint in here. Now what I've done, I've just set this in some blue tack to hold it in that position while I do this. Now because it's in blue tack, you have to do this fairly quick with the solder on because it'll heat the blue tack up and stuff will move. It's fairly easy to do, and the good thing about blue tack is you can hold stuff in all types of positions. You can shape the blue tack into points, round things, whatever you need to do. Okay, now to do the soldering, I've just got on the side here, I'll just show you, I'm just going to melt a little bit of solder onto the tip of my soldering iron here, okay, like so. And then I've just got a little brush and some flux. Now the flux I use is liquid flux, so I just brush a little bit of flux in there on the joint where I'm going to solder this, and I just quickly touch that on there like that, and that's it guys, that is now actually soldered. Like I say, you have to touch it fairly quick, otherwise the soldering iron will heat through the metal. Okay, I can touch that again now and keep actually soldering that and getting it to run like right down where the flux is. But like I say, be careful. If you hold it too long, it's going to melt that blue tack and stuff will move and it'll slide apart that joint. Okay, so that should be set there now, and as you can see, those two parts are together, and that's a perfect joint. I can see down in here the solder's actually run right down in through that joint. You can't see it because I've now moved out of the camera, but the part itself is actually soldered very, very nicely. This is the joint we soldered just here, okay, and I'm looking down the side and I can see the solders run right down inside that joint. So that's how we do soldering on fairly fine parts, guys. That's how you can hold the parts with blue tack. There is stuff you can get from Wilder's website. It's like a blue tack, but apparently it holds the stuff even with a bit of heat on it. I haven't used, so I can't be sure. But yeah, if you're going to be using soldering irons too, guys, the first thing I do when I get a soldering iron is I shape the tip. That tip is nice and sharp, okay, and you got to have it always clean, okay. If it's not clean, the solder won't stick to it. So I just use an old file, okay, and just keep cleaning the tip off, okay, so it's nice and shiny. And you just touch your solder. I'll grab the wire again and show you, okay. So there's our soldering iron and our wire, and you just touch it on there like that, and that's all you need. There's actually enough solder on there to do another joint now. You can't probably see it on that camera, but there's actually solder on that point, and I could touch that on another joint now and it would flow. But make sure you use the liquid flux. If you're using liquid flux, it just works so much better. Have your soldering iron so it's nice and hot. But yeah, guys, hopefully that'll help you with okay, guys, so started doing a bit of work on the interior of the tank. We just got like down here, we've got our seats and stuff in place there with the firing floor, and here we've just got our gun. Now just one thing that I wanted to point out to you is when you put this thing together, on the instructions it's got this part here going on after this front part on here. If you try and do that, this part will not slip over that part. So it's in the instructions on, where are we, down here? Yeah, down in this part here. Get it up a little bit higher for you. I might just have to move the camera a little bit to get it in. Okay, so it's down in here. It's showing that this part goes on, then that part goes over the top. Well, it actually doesn't fit over. It doesn't. This part, this plate here, does not fit over that. So if you're putting this one together, put this on first and then put that on there. The plate goes on first before that part there. But that's the only problem I've had so far fitting it together. Just a little bit, this part here with our catch basket and that is a little bit fiddly to play with because it's all so wonky with the long rods and stuff like that. I just held it upside down with some blue tack and glued the basket on upside down, let the glue set and then picked it up and away we went. Was going to have these little windows open at the front here, but decided to glue them shut because I'd lost two of the etch parts that were supposed to go on there. They're on the desk here somewhere, but I have no idea where they are. You know what a modelling desk looks like. So, okay guys, I'll keep going with this. When I'm ready to paint the interior, I'll probably turn the camera back on. We'll go through painting and weathering the interior of the tank. Okay guys, so we're up to the stage now where our interior has been finished off. I've finished building it, and I'm going to paint the interior now. What I've done, I've mixed a couple of colours here. I don't want to have just white because it's just too stark. I very rarely use just plain white on anything. It's just too stark. So I've mixed a little bit of the Royal Light Grey is the XF80 colour Tamiya paints. I've got no base on these. I'm just going to put the straight colour on there. This is the interior, so really you're not going to see a lot of this anyway. I'm going to have the side doors open. But other than that, you're not really going to see a lot inside. I'll just mix it down. I'll just water it down with a little bit of Mr. Self-Leveling thinners. And first thing, I'm just going to put just a really light coat inside. And forgive my airbrush; it's a little bit dodgy at the moment. I've got some parts on order for it, but it's just I'll give it a really light coat to start with. You probably won't even pick this up on the video because it's such a light coat that I'm putting in there. It's only just so the paint's actually starting to get something to grip to, so when I put the next coat on, there's already a coat there to give it something to grip to. Forgive the noise of my compressor in the background, but obviously I do have to have that running. Okay, now I've got this watered down fairly well too, guys. It's a fairly thin coat. I don't put them on too heavy. And the self-leveling thinners, like when I do put it on a little bit heavier, the good thing about it is if you go a little bit overboard, obviously self-leveling, it is going to self-level, and you're not going to end up with like orange peel effect and things like that. And like I say though, this is going to be the inside of our tank. Not really going to see a lot inside here. With those side hatches open, you'll get a bit of an idea what's in there, but it's not going to be too detailed, so we don't have to put too much effort into getting this exactly right. But I will definitely put this white on, or this whitish grey colour, and I'll also will be putting a wash inside here, guys. Without the wash, it just doesn't look the part. So now this part here, the top command hole here, I haven't got the glass parts in there yet because it'll be too hard to clean them if I put paint over them. I have got the glass parts in the sidewalls up here, but I can clean that off with a little bit of thinner and just a really pointed Q-tip. So, and I'm just going to put a little bit down inside here, not that we're going to see too far down inside the armour in here, because there is a floor base in there. You're not going to see a lot of this, but this should lighten it up a little bit, hopefully, by putting this colour inside here. It's just getting that white all inside there, lightens it all up a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to see in there. Okay, and we'll go around, we'll start putting our second coat on now. And this is where you should start seeing the difference. It'll start actually changing colour for us now. And hopefully you can see that it's actually starting to turn a little bit white now. Starting to really lighten up. Now some of this is going to have to be brushed, like some of the portal windows there, the edges around there are actually different colours. They're going to be a dark colour. I will brush paint those when it gets to those. But I'll just get this light colour in there first. Now it doesn't have to be a huge heavy coat, just so long as you've got it all lightened down in there so you can see everything. Parts of the gun, I can tip that right back and I can weather inside the breech and things like that. Make sure you get around your doors here. They're nice and white because they're going to actually be opened up. They will have full light on them, so try and make sure you've got all them painted really well, guys. So a good thing about this self-leveling thinners, you can put a fairly good coat on there and not have to worry about it, settling with orange peel and looking awful and that. Being armour too helps because you can rough it up a fair bit, and armour's knocked around and scratched and bumped and bruised and whatever else, so you don't have to worry too much about getting it like a polished finish or anything like that. Forgive me if you can't see this very well, guys, but I can't sort of adjust the camera and paint at the same time the way I've got this set up at the moment, unfortunately. So one of the things about painting these interiors too, make sure you try and get into all little nooks and crannies, all in underneath and stuff like that, because if you do get some light in there and someone sees in, you can see the grey bits that you've missed. If you miss out or anything, and it picks it up from outside, just ruins the whole effect, which is really unfortunate. Obviously these seats in here are going to be painted. I'll be hand brushing those as well. This white will act like a bit of an undercoat, guys. It'll be like the paint over the seats and things like that, will be hand brushed. It'll have an undercoat on it, so the paint will take to it very well. A little bit more around this lip up here. Now I'm not putting this on overly thick, I'm leaving it a little bit sort of transparent. That adds to the effect. Maybe you can see it around the top of that a little bit. I haven't sort of gone, it's not like just straight on there. Hopefully you can pick that up. It leaves a little bit patchy looking because like I say, armour's pretty badly knocked about, so you leave it patchy, that's part of the weathering process sort of thing. A little bit more up in there. And I just want a little bit more up inside the top of the turret here, just to make it nice and bright up in here for us. And all those clear parts, I want to make sure they got plenty of paint on them so that they don't look out of place or anything. And I have got this fairly well watered down too, guys. I like it to be fairly thin, so it makes it easier to do it transparent if I want it transparent. And if I want to build it up, I can just go in and put other layers on like I'm doing here at the moment. Okay, mainly around those glass. Give the doors another coat just to make sure they're nice and white for us. Okay. And they got clear parts on them as well, so I want to make sure that's definitely covered. Like I say, I'll go in over those clear parts with a Q-tip and I'll clean those up a little bit later on. And I've still got to paint a little bit around those as well, guys. Okay, that's starting to look pretty much like I wanted, I think, guys. I'll just check this part here to make sure I might put a little bit more on there. It's still looking a little bit dark down inside there. Not too much, I don't want it to be. I don't want to lose that transparent look that we were talking about that I've got in there. But just having the white just lightens it up where we can put it on fairly thick. It'll just lighten it all up for us. And the floor's going to be fairly dirty too, guys. I'm going to have a fair bit of weathering's going to go on that floor, so you'll probably see the paint vapours coming out of here, guys. There's got nowhere else to go, so it's got to come out through there. Now, while I've got this mix in here, I'm actually going to go down inside these vents. Now, there's etch parts down inside there, you can see them. So while I've got this nice light mix, I'm going to put just a quick overcoat over all of this. That'll help me see any mistakes, and it gives us a bit of a base to paint over later on. So, okay, it's not going to be much, it'll just be a little bit, and I want to get it down on those vents so that those etch parts down in there stop gleaming back up through the slots, because nothing looks worse than looking down and seeing photo-etch through there. And now with painting over etch, you can get like overcoats, like proper paint to paint over etch parts, but I find if I just use this Tamiya like this and just give it like a nice, just really light overcoat to start off with, it's fine. It'll take another coat over it, no worries. I have no problems with it flaking off or chipping off later on. You know, if you're going to handle it a fair bit, yeah, maybe that will happen. But generally, I don't have to worry too much about it. Once it's got this light mist coat over it, guys, paint will stick to it fairly well. And so this is only just a really light coat, and this is fairly watered down, so it's fairly transparent. But it's going to give our later coat something to stick to. Now I'm putting a fair bit down on those vents, just to make sure I get that etch down in there, so it's not going to gleam back at us. Okay, let's move some of this out of the road, so we can get this more up in shot for you. Okay, put a little bit around the front here for us. Okay. Now this will just sort of knock all that photo-etch colour down for me. It just makes it easier for me to spot mistakes and stuff like that. When there's photo-etch gleaming back everywhere, it's a bit harder to spot mistakes because your eye's just drawn straight to those shiny etch parts. And also the etch, there can be mistakes in the etch that you can't see until it's painted. Because it's all brass and shiny, it shines back at you, and it makes it really hard to see any mistakes that you've got in there. So, just get one more coat up this side here over these plates. Okay, that's all looking pretty good, guys. It's like I already see, there's a couple little spots there I want to go in and correct on that photo etch. It's a little bit iffy in some of those areas, but generally it's not looking too bad, guys. We should get this one pushed out fairly quickly, I'm hoping. Probably the next drawn out part is going to be putting the tracks together now, because the way these tracks work as individual links. I'll put them together and put them on there. Everything will have to be painted pretty much in situ. It's a bit of a pain. I know there is ways you can do it without having to put the tracks on, painting around it like in situ, but I just prefer to do it that way. It's just a habit I got into, but there is other ways of doing it. just browse around the net and stuff like that on people working on tracks, and there is different ways to do it. Paint them first, then put them on later. You know, you can paint the tank, then build your tracks, put them on, then paint them after. You can do it that way if you like. I'm just going to decide too, guys. I might put some of the road wheels are going to be a little bit different colour. I'm going to have them so that they're in the base colour that comes from the factory. So I'm not dead certain I'm going to put the tracks on first, but I'll see how I go with the build. And but yeah, I'll turn the camera back on when we're up to that stage, and see you then. Okay guys, so we're pretty much done with the build. Got to put the tracks together yet, but what I'm going to do now, we're up to the stage where I'm actually going to put some paint on. The first coat I'm going to put on here, other than the grey we put on earlier on, is I'm going to put down a German grey. I'm using the Tamiya colour here. Let's turn that speaker off in the background. Just using the Tamiya German grey colour here, and I'm just going to give it all a nice grey coat, and then we're going to put the sand colour on it, the German sand colour after that. But what we're going to do is we're going to put some worn effects and some hairspray on between those coats, and we're going to do a bit of a worn effect to, like what used to happen is these tanks, well, especially the earlier ones, would turn up in the German grey and they'd quickly paint them in the field with the sand colours that they used in the desert, and the sand colour would wear through fairly quickly. So I'm just going to put the German grey underneath, and then we'll put some hairspray and some worn effects on different parts of the tank, and then we'll wear back through those, and that'll give us a beautiful effect. Well, hopefully it'll give us a beautiful effect. We'll see. Okay guys, so we've got our grey paint ready to go here, and I'm just going to start off with a fairly light coat to start up with. So I'm just spraying a little bit off to the side here so I get my airspray right, and it's just going to be a light coat, like I say, to start off with. So there's road wheels, and this light coat's just to give the paint something to hang on to when I go over with the heavier coat the second time round. Okay, so I'm not worried too much about the coverage on this coat, guys. It's just to get this first coat over it, and I've got a little bit of hair on that one there, so I'll have to brush that off before I put the second coat on that one. Take that off. Now I've just got these sitting on blue tack so that the airflow doesn't blow them away, sort of thing. Okay, the ones up the top up here. I've got the jerry cans. I'm going to do the same thing with the jerry cans here too, guys. Just same thing, the German grey, bit of hairspray or worn technique, the worn fluid, and same thing as we're going to do with the tank. We're just going to sort of wear through it. And okay, you can see there's a bit of etch on that wheel there. That's the thing. You can get a fluid that you put on that so that the paint sticks to the etch alright, but I find Tamiya paint works fine just so long as you put this first light coat on there before you try and put a heavy coat on. Now I've got these two wheels here are the spare wheels that will go onto the side of the tank, the ones on the end here, and they're actually going to be painted a different colour, so I'm not going to hit those with the grey. But that's the first coat anyway, guys, on there now. A little bit more on these up the top here. So I'm just going to turn some of these over so we can go on to our second coat, especially these jerry cans. Okay. The road wheels. Okay. What I'll do, guys, instead of just doing this while I've got the camera on, because it's just going to bore you to tears watching me do this, I'll do the tank hole while I've got you here. I'll just get the camera back around a little bit here for you. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just going to be this light mist coat first, and this will give us an idea of any mistakes I've got on the tank as well, so I know what to go around and fix up. Now I'm going to spray through these vents a little bit so that we can get that etch down there, make sure that etch is not going to show through for us. Okay, that's good, it's nice and covered in there. And this first little bit, guys, I'm going to make sure we get down in all these little grooves underneath the commander's turret there. Okay. Make sure I get all that, all around these little hatches at the top here. Okay. Now when you're spraying armour too, guys, make sure anything that's movable on it, move it around as you're spraying it so you get the paint in all the areas, because there's nothing worse than, you know, when you spray something like this and then afterwards you'll move something like that and realise, oh no, I've missed something. So anything that's movable on here, make sure you move it around. The only thing I'm not going to move on here is to put the hatches on the side are movable, so we can open this thing up, because as we were saying before, we have painted inside this as well. Okay, get up underneath things as well, like that toolbox, we've got to get up underneath it. I don't want to tip this upside down too much because pieces will fall off it. There's some pieces that, like that top hatch there, is not actually glued on, because I want to be able to move that around. So make sure I keep this in camera for you guys. Sorry about that, I just moved off to the side there. I'm sitting in a bit of an awkward angle here doing this, so forgive me if it does go in and out of focus and out of shot and things like that. And the other thing is, guys, like the Photo-etch that I've got on here, doing this light spray again gives the second coat something to grip onto. So just putting the light coat over it. Okay, etch on the back here. Get up underneath all these little parts. You've got lots of little bits and pieces on the side here, all that tools and things like that, which I'll paint in situ on this. Sometimes I paint them off the armour, sometimes I paint them on. I've left them on this time, obviously. I'll paint them in situ, right up underneath the guards. I mean, you know that up underneath the guards, you're not really going to see much of that anyway, but I mean, if you're like me, you know it's there, so you don't want anyone to, and if you know it's there, you want to make sure you get all these sorts of things right. I don't worry too much about putting too much paint up underneath the guards, guys, because I'm going to do a fair bit of weathering, put a lot of dirt up underneath there. So now there's a couple more little parts that I do have to glue onto this, a couple of little etch parts and that, but I've kept them off at the moment because while I'm handling this, while I'm spraying it, I'm worried I'm actually going to break them off, so I've left them off until the last thing. And like we're saying, we're going through those instructions, I've got those red dots on there, and as I put those parts on where I've got the red dot, I actually cross that out so I know that I've actually done that. But it's easy enough, you don't have to cross it out, it's easy enough to just sort of check as you're going through to see if you've got that part on there or not. Okay, we're just about done, a little bit up on the guards here. Like I say, I don't put a lot up underneath these guards, guys, because it is going to cop a pretty stiff sort of a weathering. We've got the other coat to go underneath it. The German grey I'm putting underneath here is just so like when we do a bit of chipping, we'll do a fair bit of chipping underneath here, because if they did paint underneath the guards, which they didn't in a lot of cases, it would chip off severely if they did paint up underneath there. Okay, let's put down along the front here now. When you're brushing too, guys, make sure you sort of come in at different angles to make sure you get everything at the different angles, because if you don't, you'll sort of turn it to a different point of view and then you'll see pieces that you missed. So keep moving the airbrush around, get everything at different angles and stuff. Okay. Now I haven't got the top on this airbrush, so it's actually spilling a little bit of paint out the side. I've got it fairly full because I'm going to put a heavier coat on it after this. So normally I've got the cap on it, but I've actually lost the cap, and like I was saying before, I've got spare parts coming. I normally have the cap on there to avoid that sort of thing, but I haven't in this demo. I'm not normally that rough, but anyway, guys, that's the first coat on there. I'll keep going with that now. Once it's all grey and I'm getting ready to do the next coat, like putting the hairspray and the fluid and stuff on there, I'll turn the camera back on and yeah, we'll show you how you do that. Okay guys, so we're all undercoated with our grey on our tank here now, and we're up to the next step, which is I'm going to put some worn effects over that grey. That's the AK interactive worn effects, this stuff here. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of coats of that over it. I was going to use a hairspray, but I think the worn effects is more the look I'm after on this model. I don't want to chip off too much stuff. The hairspray is it's much more severe, the chipping effect, and I want it to be more of a worn effect, like wearing through the paint rather than chipping it all off. We can still do chipping with the AK stuff, but yeah, it's just not as severe, so I'm going to go with the AK on this. Forgive the sound of my compressor that's going to be stopping and starting in the background there, but yeah, I've just loaded up my airbrush now with the worn effect. Now this stuff, when you spray it on, you mainly only need to put it where you're going to be working on it, and so I'm obviously going to be working on just about everything on this tank, including up underneath here. That would, if they did paint up underneath there, it would definitely wear off there fairly quick, so I'll put a good layer up underneath there. Like I say, this is only the first coat. I'll let this dry off a little bit and then I'll come along with the second coat. Now this stuff guys, when you spray it on, it'll all sort of bubble up and it'll look like, oh no, I'm going to have like an orange peel finish on here, but this stuff actually dries nice and flat, okay? And it dries in a bit of a semi-sheen sort of a look, so yeah, don't panic, but it's just the way this stuff works guys. And on here I can see there's a fingerprint. I must have had some oil or something on my finger there and it's not actually penetrating that, so between the first and second coat I'm going to have to rub that down a little bit. Now just make sure you definitely get it into all the places where you're going to be doing your chipping and your worn effects, so I want it pretty much everywhere up underneath and right in all the nooks and crannies, because I'll probably be doing a little bit of chipping inside. Up underneath those, don't forget to move any movable parts around so you can get that effect up underneath it. The commander's turret up the top here, get up underneath that as well. Toolbox obviously is going to cop a little bit of a hiding, same with the back here, our engine bays, and definitely around the exhaust and off the back here would have copped a fair bit of a hiding, because this is where your tow cables and everything are stored, so your mud guards again going to cop a fair bit of a hiding. Make sure you get up all down in there. Now if you do miss some places on these, it doesn't matter too much guys, because you can actually achieve a chipping effect just by doing, you know, getting the coloured paint, the grey coloured paint, and chipping with that as well. You can use a sponge to get chipping effect as well, so don't panic too much if you know you start chipping back on this stuff or wearing back on this stuff and you find out there's a bit that you've missed. It's not such a big drama guys, you can actually achieve the effect without this. So that's the first coat of that on there. I've got some road wheels off to the side here, but I'm not going to worry about doing those. They're going to be actually a different colour. I'm not sure you can see down on the side here, I've already got like that red, the factory red stuff, because some of these spares used to come in from the factory not painted, you know, especially when they were like, you know, out in the desert and war's on and they're starting to run short on parts. They take whatever they could get basically, so a lot of times they used to come in just in the factory red. They wouldn't paint them. I mean, they're only going to be using these things out in the desert, and so they didn't really care that, you know, one road wheel would be red while the others were grey. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't competition to see who had the hottest looking tank. So okay, so I'll let that coat dry for a while guys, and then I'll put the second one on. I won't worry about turning the camera on when I put the second coat on. I'll turn it on when we put our overcoat on, our actual colour. So what I'm going to be doing is, this is supposed to be a tan colour, it's not your desert yellow. So what I got here is the Tamiya, the desert yellow, okay, and I'm going to mix it with the tan and put that colour on. So it's going to be more of a tan than the desert yellow sort of look. It's a mix of those two. I'm going to mix that off to the side in a colour cut till I get the consistency and the colour that I'm really after. Then I'll put the video back on and we'll go over and put it over. When you're doing hairspray or chipping fluids or worn effect stuff, guys, remember the more you put on, the more coats of the stuff you put on, the more paint is going to chip off it. The other thing is too, when we get to the chipping part of it, I'll show you, depending on how much water you put on that overcoat, as to how much is going to fall off there. So just keep that in mind. If you want to have just light worn effects, only put a little bit of this stuff on. If you want to go heavy chipping instead of worn, I'd use hairspray or proper chipping fluid. But like I say, I really want to have more of a worn effect around all the hatches and road wheels and things like that, rather than heavy chipping. So okay guys, when I'm ready to put that next coat of colour on there, I'll turn the video back on and we'll go through that. Okay guys, so we've got, well, I've got I think there's like 2 good coats of the worn effects on here now over our German grey, and we're ready to do our top coat colour, which is the tan colour we're talking about before. I've just mixed the two Tamirs, the desert yellow or the dark yellow and the deck tan, to get the colour that I'm after, which is just a tan colour, the desert tan colour. So I'm going to go around now and start putting the paint on. Now there's no real trick or anything to this. I've got the paint reasonably thin. I'm just going to go over first up with a light layer and get up underneath all the little places where we've got to get the paint, just to make sure I get paint in there. So it's better to do this now on this first coat and get all that done. Right down inside all your hatches in here, because obviously we're going to be doing a bit of chipping down inside there, so we'll make sure we get it all down inside there, all around the hatches, the handles, things like that. Now on these parts at the top here, like the big plates, I'll start off with a coat around the outside. Now I want that coat around the outside to remain a little bit transparent, so what I'll do is when I do the middle part of that on the second coat, I'll just paint into the middle and I won't do around the edges. I'll just keep it local to the middle, so that way those outside parts which I'm going to chip will be a little bit transparent, and that'll just make that effect look much better. I'm also going to hopefully have most of the paintwork a little bit transparent anyway, so it looks a bit blotchy. I'll just quickly wind this camera in to see if you can see on the turret here what I mean. If you can see that, how it's a little bit blotchy looking, that's the sort of effect I'm going to go for anyway, but it won't be as obvious as that. I'm going to try and make it a little bit less obvious, because we've got the worn effect on there, which can, we can get that effect anyway, but that just makes it a bit blotchy. It gives us a little bit more of a realistic look when it comes down to it. Now get right down in behind between the toolbox here and the turret. You got to make sure you get right into those places, because it looks terrible when if you miss spots like that and then you spot it afterwards, it just really stands out. Okay, with the door on the side here, again around the sides, okay, leave a little bit transparent. Now I'm going to open that door up just a tad, so I'll make sure I get that edge. Okay, I don't want to open it right up, because otherwise we'll get that paint on the inside and that will actually ruin our interior then. So I've got that on there, and it doesn't matter if there's tweezers scratch that paint a little bit, that's fine, because we're going to be scratching this up anyway. So I'll go around the back here. What I'll do, I'll put this coat in the middle here underneath where that toolbox will be sitting. That way I don't have to spin that turret around again, because I don't want to be scratching the paint by spinning that around. So I'll put a reasonably good coat on underneath there where that is going to be sitting, like so. And obviously that's all going to be fairly heavily chipped underneath there too, guys, because that's, with the toolbox, obviously the crew would be spending a bit of time getting things out of the toolbox. So okay, and we'll put our turret back over the top like that, spin it a little bit the other direction, and we'll get this side here. Okay, again up into that toolbox Make sure we get up underneath it there. Okay. And I'll just straighten the turret back up again. And that's it. I won't go back underneath there again. So guys, what I'll do, I'll just keep going around doing this first coat. I don't want to bore you having you watch me do this the whole video. But like I say, the second coat, what I'll do, I'll just quickly show you on the top of here now. What I'll do is I'll go into the middle parts like this. Okay, and try and keep away from the edges a little bit. I'll brush back a bit and make it a little bit. Okay. And what this will do, it'll leave like a faded effect towards the outsides. And I'll get that up to the camera again so you can have a look at that, what I'm talking about. Hopefully you can see that. The light is not that great, but hopefully you can see that effect that I'm talking about, and you see that the dark part around the edges. Okay, so I'm going to try and do that over the whole tank. Okay, so guys, what I'll do, I'll turn the camera off while I'm doing this overcoat because that's going to take a while. I've also got all my jerry cans, the spare road wheels, and I've got a couple of helmets here as well. Now I'm going to do with the helmets the same thing. Get this camera to focus up on the back of my hand and show you the helmets. So the helmets are the same thing. I've just undercoated with the German grey, and I'm going to put some worn effects over that, and then I'll chip back through it to the grey so they look a little bit chipped and worn as well. I haven't done that with the jerry cans because the jerry cans are actually painted that colour originally, and they don't chip back to the grey. I think there were some that were grey, some that were black. There's different colours, but in this case here, I'm not going to worry about doing that. So anyway guys, I'll turn the camera back on once I've got this top coat over everything. But just remember, what I'm doing is leaving it faded around the outsides, all the bigger panels, and darker towards the middle, or not as transparent towards the middles. When I've got this done, turn the camera back on and we will start our wearing and chipping process. Okay guys, so we've got our chipping fluid and our top coat on there now, and I've already put a bit of water on here to start softening the paint up a little bit, and I just want to show you what I'm going to do the chipping effects. Okay, now there's different effects we can use here. Now it depends on how much water you put on there, how much you let it soak. So at the moment I've just got that fairly well soaked with water, because I only put the 2 thin coats of chipping fluid. So now one thing you can do, I've got this big wide brush here. Okay, you can drag that backwards and forwards, and hopefully you're picking this up. It's actually taking off a few little flecks of paint up off that little cap there, and a little bit around the bottom where the chipping fluid was obviously fairly thick. You can scrub along the edges here, and again you'll be able to see where that's starting to take off little bits around the side and around the front here. Okay, now that's with a big brush. You can use a softer brush like this guy here, and you can actually rub like with it, nice soft bristles, and if it's soaked enough, which this hasn't quite yet, but what it'll do is actually start wearing back down through that paint. Now I'll lift this up so you can actually get an idea of what's happening. You can see those chips starting to appear there. It's very nice. Now that's the sort of thing that we're after. The other thing we do, let's see if I can zoom this. No, I can't actually zoom it much more. But okay, what I'll do is around this top part here where you can probably see it's in the middle of the camera, I've got a fairly stiff sort of brush now, and I'll just wet it a little bit. Okay, now you can scrub around areas like this, and what that'll do, because it's a stiff brush, it'll really start tearing into it and putting some fairly good chips in there like so. Okay, the other thing you can do, you can use toothpicks and things like that to put, say, like scratches in like that. So we've got a nice scratch through the middle of that there now. Okay, and I'll lift that up for you and I'll show you what we've got. Okay, you can see that there. Okay, now what I'm after is I'm going to try and scrub like right on these corners here. Okay, these are the parts where it'll cop the most wear and tear. Obviously the handles, I'll clean them right off. They're actually going to be shiny. You can see the metal showing through there now, but I'm actually going to repaint those anyway, guys. So I'm just going to go around these sharp edges where the weld is. Now, a thing with the weld I like to leave, hopefully the camera will pick this up, I'll get it up into some focus for you. if you can see in that weld, it's actually left some of the light coloured paint in the weld, so it really shows that weld up, and that's great. That's a beautiful effect. I can't see it with my naked eye because I'm too blind to, but most people could see that, and it really shows that weld up, and it's just a beautiful effect. Okay, so all I'm going to do is go right around all these edges like so. You can actually dab at it if you don't want to rub too much off. You can just sort of dab at it like so. I don't want to take too much off here because this wouldn't have copped a lot of wear and tear, maybe a bit of sandblast and stuff like that if they were following other tanks through the desert. But generally the crew wouldn't be crawling backwards and forwards over this. These, because they're high points, yes, the crew would have knocked a fair bit of paint off those. Our cap over here, again, and you can do as much or as little as you like on these guys. Okay, so if I just wanted to have like a light effect, a light chipping effect, I could leave it at that. Okay, and you can see that it's a nice effect, but obviously I want this to be much more chipped and damaged and rubbed through sort of thing. Now you can see on the back here where that water's really soaked in there now, how that has just come straight off. Okay, so if I went in with, say, a lighter brush and started going over that, it's taking some off, but only lightly. Okay, and down the sides here again, I'm just going to use this lighter brush, and hopefully it will just, yep, so it's only just taking off. So you can just see it's taking off just little bits, it's not taking off great big heaps. Now over that corner there, because that's a corner, I'm going to rub it that way, and that water hasn't soaked in there properly yet. But as you can see, guys, that's starting to come up really nice there now. So all I'm going to do is go over the rest of the tank. I'll just show you underneath here where the road wheels are. Now this I just use the bigger brush, okay, and once it's been wet and you rub it around a little bit, it just starts wearing it off, making it look really sandy. Okay guys, sorry I just ran out of room on the SD card there, but all I was saying is that underneath here, underneath these guards, now that's been soaking for a little while now, and I'm just using this big brush and just going around in random patterns, not straight up and down and not in one direction, just sort of dabbing a little bit. Now what that's doing is taking stuff off underneath there in a random pattern. Now underneath here is going to be pretty well weathered anyway, guys, and one of the areas that I will rub right back is all these underneath here where the wheels attached, these nuts and bolts and things like that, these little high points. I rub this brush over those, and it just takes the paint off the top of those just to make sure they are really well weathered up, they're really well worn looking. Now if you can see, I'll get this into focus for you, you might be able to see down inside there, not with the shadow you won't, but if you can see that there, how it's got that nice worn effect over the top of these. It hasn't gone right through the paint, but it's just got a nice worn effect. All the bolts above it there are worn off, and that's the sort of effect we're looking underneath here. All this side skirting up underneath here. It doesn't matter how much you take off here, because I'm going to actually have this fairly well weathered anyway, guys. It's going to be, you know, like pretty well covered in pastels and things like that. But on the top here, you can see I've gone around a little bit more now, around the commander's hatch here and things like that. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over the rest of the tank now with the camera off. I don't want to bore you too much watching me do the whole tank doing this. I'll be doing all the road wheels and stuff as well. And when I've finished, I'll come back and show you the look I'm after. The only other thing I haven't showed you is on the back here. If you can see, I've put stencil paint, like I've painted these with stencils, these little markings on the back rather than the decals. But I will be using decals over these hatches here, the numbers on the side. And that's going to be fairly interesting, because I have to do this chipping, then put down a clear coat, and then put the decals on, and then do the rest of the weathering after it. So I'm hoping the decals are okay in this kit, and they're going to conform to that fairly well. But as I say, I'll keep going on with this chipping now, with this worn effect chipping, and when I finish it, we'll come back and I'll show you the result. Okay guys, so the chipping's done now, and as you see, it comes up with a really nice effect. That's exactly what I was after. That's a beautiful look. That's the sort of look I was after. Get all that yellow paint to sort of chip off and wear off like that. And we're going to do a bit more weathering with pastels and powders and different things a bit later on. And I'll turn the video back on when I do all that sort of stuff and show you how to do it. But the next step is I've got to put the decals on the side here, the numbers on the side of the tank. Like I was saying before, I've already put these guys on the back here. They're not decals. I've actually done that with stencils. Put that one there and the one on the front here. Now the reason I've done these two in the stencils because they're easy to get to. So anyway guys, that gives you an idea of the chipping fluid and what I can do. I've opened the hatches up here now and glued them. The guys on the side here, these hatches on the side, as you see, they're movable, so I can open and shut those as I like. And I've got some figures here, but we won't do the figures for this video. We'll do the figures for a later video. Or what I'll do is I'll do up a video for the base and the figures at the same time, and that'll finish this project off. But what I'll do, I'll just show you the weathering on this tank. I'll finish the tank off and that'll be the end of this video, and then in a separate video I'll do the base and the figures, and that'll show you figure painting plus, you know, a simple base. And like we were saying at the beginning of this kit here, there's even a cactus inside this kit, which is going to be awesome to be able to put in the base. And because all the road wheels are movable, I think about having this running over a bit of a rock or something like that, so we can, you know, have the tracks a little bit at skew if and not just plain and dull like just sitting on flat ground. But we'll get to that. Anyway guys, I'm going to put a clear coat over this now for protection for putting the decals on, and also the further weathering, which I'm going to do with streaking effects and rust effect. Once I've done that, I'm just going to do like a pin wash around everything. Once I do the pin wash, then we'll come back on, we'll do some further weathering. Okay guys, I'll turn the video on after I've done the decals. I'll show you how to wear them down and we'll do a bit of a pin wash. Okay guys, so chipping's all done now, and as you can see it's come up rather nice. I love that sort of effect that chipping fluid leaves on there. It's not too harsh like the chipping. I mean, it looks harsh on here because I've done a lot of it, but like it leaves a fairly faded effect around the edges here. I did put a little bit more of this colour in my airbrush and brush around some of the parts I thought that I'd overdone. Just sort of a couple little spots that I touched up. Done a little bit of painting on these couple of road wheels and things. So my next step is now I'm just going to do a pin wash all around, like all the detail, and all I'm going to use for that is the Tamiya panel line wash stuff. I'll go around and like all the details up around these hatches, things like that. I mean, you all know what a pin wash is, so I don't probably need to have the video on while I'm doing that. But that gives you an idea of what the chipping can do. I did have a bit of problem with the decals. I did have them on there and they weren't dry, and when I picked it up I actually put my thumb in it and it just wrecked one side, so I took them off both sides, and I've just put the number 4 up underneath there. So it's a bit of a fantasy tank. I'm not trying to create the realistic, that particular tank or anything like that. This is a fantasy sort of thing, so just put a number 4 up underneath on the toolbox there, just because it's out of the road, and it took so long to get the decals to conform around these hatches and stuff like that, and they're a little bit skew if. Now I could go through and tape it up and like brush those on with the airbrush. I've got the stencils and that for it, but I just want to get this project finished now, and it's more for showing you guys techniques for doing this sort of finish on tanks and that. And like I say, with this chipping, guys, you don't have to go as heavy as what I've done on here. You can go as light or heavy as you want. Probably one thing that you have to know is when you thin your overcoat down, like you put your thinning fluid or your chipping fluid on, and then when you put the overcoat over it, thin it down with water. Don't thin it down with thinners because it just makes it hang on a bit harder and stick together a bit harder. Thin it down with water, and that way you've got more control over it like I've had here. Yeah guys, so what I'm going to do now, I'll do the pin wash. Once I finish the pin wash, I'll turn it back on, and that's when we'll start having some fun with a bit of weathering and that then. Okay guys, and I'll see you then. Okay guys, so we're up to doing a bit of weathering now, and I've already weathered this side here, just underneath here where the tracks and everything are going to go, and hopefully you can see that. I haven't like put like a big heap of dirt or mud under there because it's actually in the desert, so that you won't have mud and stuff like that underneath there, but I just wanted a dusty sort of appearance on there. And the other thing I've done is on the side of the turret up here, just on this one side. If you can see that, it's I faded that down a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is do that over the whole tank, and I'll show you actually how I achieved that effect. The other part I've done is just on the nose here. I've just started down here on this front plate to weather that down a little bit. So all I've got here is, let's move those road wheels out of the way, and I'll zoom you in a little bit and just make sure that camera is where we need it. Okay. Right, so all I've got here is I've got some different products, because I know you guys won't have everything. Like I've got the AK fluids here, these streaking effects, a couple of different colours, like dust effects and things like that. And these ones here are the ones for the desert vehicles. I've also got in this tray here, I've got a few different weathering powders. Now all I've done is mixed up those two streaking effects. I've mixed them up in this pot here. I've got 3 different coloured powders which I mix to make different coloured dust and things like that. The idea of making different coloured pastels or different coloured powders is just so you don't end up with just the one uniform colour over the tank. The other thing I've got over here is just some oil paints mixed up. I've got some brown, some white, some yellow, and again I just keep mixing these around till I get the colour I want. So first thing I'm going to show you is the streaking effects and how they work. So all I do, I just have a fine brush like this guy here. I've dipped it into that colour I've made on the side there, and I just put a couple of dabs around like so, like that. I'll put some up here as well on the facing plate. Now you don't need to put a lot on, guys, just put a couple of little dots and streaks and things like that on there. Okay, make sure you keep mixing this too as you dip your brush, otherwise you'll end up with all the clear stuff on top, and the actual powders or whatever they use in this stuff will be down the bottom. So keep mixing it around as you use it. Okay, we just put a few spots around like so. Okay, now what we do with those is we let those dry, all dry a little bit, and then we use a brush dipped in white spirit to just sort of soften them up and blend them in. But while we're on this, I'm also going to use some of that oil paint that I mixed off to the side, and just to put a couple more dots in. Now those oil ones that I mixed up will actually be a bit lighter colour, okay, and the effect that's going to give us is a bit more of a, like, different colours faded in. It's not just going to be the one colour. Also what I'm going to do is some more of that streaking effect fluid and some of the pastel powder that I ground up, okay, and just put that around a few different places as well, like so. Okay, now you can go over and build this effect up, you know, do it like several times over sort of thing to build the effect up if you like. Generally that's what I do, but because I want to tape this, I don't want it to all sort of, you know, take hours and hours to show you how to do this. Okay, so that oil will take a little while to dry, and while it's drying I'll show you what I do underneath the guards here. Now it's pretty much the same thing. I just use the streaking effect stuff, and again it's just big dabs of that around the place. Okay, now you don't have to be too neat with this, just make sure you keep it fairly random in different spots. Okay, make sure you get it up underneath there in all the different areas around where the road wheels and stuff are. Okay, I'll make sure this camera's focusing down here where we need it to focus. Okay, and you can see that there. Now the same thing, I've just got all the powders here mixed around, and I'm just going to put those around fairly heavily in different places. Again, it's just got to be random. You don't want it to be too uniform. Hopefully that camera will focus a little bit better there for us now. Okay, again, just nice and random, a few different colours mixed together, but don't mix them right in so that it makes one colour. Keep the colours a little bit separated so it's fairly rough. Okay, put a bit more up around there. Okay, now that should do for that part. Now what I do with those powders now that they're up underneath there, I'm just dipping a brush in white spirit, okay, and I just make sure it keeps nice and wet and moist, and I dab around inside all that stuff, okay. Now I don't want to mix it too much, I don't want to blend it all in so that it's just one colour, okay. I just keep putting the white spirit in there like so, okay, and you do mix it around a little bit, just to, you know, like mix the powders and the different materials we've got under there, get them to mix around a little bit, but don't mix too much, because if you do, you'll end up with just the one colour underneath there, and it just won't look nice and random, okay. So at the moment we've got all those different colours, and as that dries, it'll come up with a really nice effect with all the different colours underneath there, okay. So while that's drying, we'll go back to the front of our tank here now, and I'll just wash off that brush, and we're going to use a fairly flat one. Now this stuff hasn't dried properly yet, but it'll do for showing you what I'm doing. I've just dipped this in white spirit and just dab it on a tissue to dry it off a little bit, okay. Now I'm just going to run it backwards and forwards, up and down like so. Now that's just actually moistened up all those dots that I put on, okay. Now I'm going to clean the brush off, dab it on the tissue again, and go over again, okay, and just up and down patterns like so, okay. Do this a few times over, but don't sort of do it too much, because you'll end up just, like I was saying, blending all those together and it'll just be one colour, okay. I'll do the bits up on the facing plate there now. Again, I've moistened them up, and now the second time over, just run the brush up and down, and I've got a little bit on that plate as well, okay. And just tidy up a couple little bits there. Okay, now if you can see that effect there, guys, it's giving you a nice streaky effect, and as that dries, it'll be a much flatter sort of coat, and it will look really good, okay. You'll get that same sort of faded effect we've got on the side of that turret up there, so that the chipping and that is just sort of dulled down a little bit, and the same thing on the nose here. It'll end up looking like the paintwork sort of faded and chipped, and yeah, you've got a few different colours in there just so it's not too patterned and uniform. Now on the nose, I'm brushing up and down because it's on a slant here, on flat plates up the top here. I'll use the same sort of effect, but what I'll do is I'll dab all the different colours and things around, and then I'll use quite a bit of spirit to just sort of dab it in, get all that colour to go into a lot of the recesses, and to give you an idea of that up around here, around where the turret base is. You can see that stuff in there. Now if you don't like that effect, if it's too heavy or whatever, once it's dry, you can actually go over with the brush. Now that brush is actually just really damp, like barely anything left on it with the white spirit, and that's actually dulled that right back down. It's taken a bit of that dust out of there, and you can keep going with that. If you don't like this stuff, dip your brush in white spirit, go over it again, and you can actually take it back off and start again. Now like I say, guys, you can do this, I've just done it in one big hit here, okay, but normally I would do this in layers. I'd just keep layering this up and down. One of the things is, if you use the oil paint, which I have on here like you just seen then, I can still blend that even now, okay, because the oil paint just takes so long to dry. And that is another effect you can use with the oil paint. You can just sort of brush around like in the middle of that colour there, and what that does is just make that whole plate look all nice and random, and yeah. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go over the rest of the tank now with pretty much the same technique. Then after that, I'm going to use some powders, some weathering powders, and just put a general dust over it. I'll pick out the detail, put the tracks on there, and we should be finished then. But you know, when I put the dust on there, obviously I'll turn the camera back on and show you how we achieve that, and I'll also show you weathering the tracks up, okay. Now the other thing you can do is put rust streaks on there with the same technique. There is, if I can find some here, track wash, that's not the one, this one here. You can get this stuff here, rust streaks, okay, and use it in the same way. Just put some dots on there, allow it to dry, and just dip it in white spirit and just drag it down, and you can get some nice rusty streaks down off your nuts and bolts and different things like that where you would get rust streaks. But generally in the desert, these things didn't rust a lot. They did get dew over night time and things like that, but because they were used so much and they got sandblasted, basically there wasn't a lot of rust on them. There's a lot of wear and tear on the paint, but not so much in the rust, so I don't like using rust much on these. I do like the rust effect, but it just doesn't suit the Desert Armour because they generally didn't rust too much. With the tracks, again, I won't be rusting them up because again they didn't rust. They were pretty much chewed up in the sand all the time, and it kept them fairly clean. But yeah, as we get to those effects, guys, I'll go through those and start the camera up and go through it with you and show you how we get it. And hopefully, when we finish, you'll like the results. Okay, guys, so we're pretty much done with the weathering. As I was showing you before, I've been over the whole tank now and done that. And as you can see, it's come up quite nice. I'll get him up a bit closer to the camera here so you can have a bit better look at it. Hopefully this camera will focus for you and you can see the effect. When it's finished, I'll take some still photos so you can actually see it much better. All I've got to do now is I'm just going to dry brush some weathering powders over it, like just some dust coloured ones. And the other thing is I'm just going to go around, paint all the detail on there, pick out the detail. I'm going to put my tracks on there. Once the tracks are on, I'll turn the camera back on. I'll show you how I weather the tracks up and everything. There's a couple of places I missed. I just noticed on here where the decal is, and around the back of the toolbox. I know I haven't been there yet, but I've got to do a bit of painting there. So, and the other thing I'm going to do, guys, I'll just show you a couple of techniques for putting like shiny edges around things. So I'll get this camera in a little bit, and the first one that you can use is just a pencil. Okay, and go along the edges like so, and try and go over where the weld is a little bit too, guys, so it shows up that weld really nice. Okay, because the edges were the parts that would be polished up. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I'll see if I can get that to focus up nice and close for you somewhere like so, and hopefully in the right light you'll be able to see that effect there. Hopefully, I'm not sure, the light's not real good here. You might be able to see that handle there. Camera's going again. There we go. Okay, so that handle was done the same way. That's one way you can do it. The other way is just with pigment powders. I've got these pigments here. They're like just a steel pigment. Okay, and it's the same deal. I just use my finger on these. Okay, and you can run around the edges of things. Don't put too much on your finger though, guys, because if you put too much on, you'll overdo the effect. Okay. Let's go around that edge, and then I'll lift that up to the camera to show you. If I can get that to focus for you. Trying. There we go. Sorry about this camera, guys. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's all I've got at the moment. So yeah, hopefully you can see that effect on there, that polished sort of look that it's got to it. There's a little bit around the back here where the chains are. I think I've got some on over here where the fuel drums are going to go, the jerry cans, on that bit of metal there is polished up a little bit on the edges. Okay, it's a bit hard to see, but and the other way you can do it is I use these guys here, these earbuds or cotton swabs or whatever you want to call them. Same thing, you just dip it into the powders, or you can grind up some pencil or whatever. It's the same thing, just that you can get a little bit more detailed with it and just rub it around. Like if we go around this hatch here with it, okay, just polish that up. Okay, blow off the excess, give it a little bit of a rub, like so. Okay, and hopefully, again, if we can get this thing to focus for you, and there we go. Hopefully you can pick this up on the camera. If not, like I say, I'll take some still shots, and you'll definitely pick it up on the still shots, like that effect there. You see that one there now where it's polished up. Okay, so I'm going to do that around like all the hinges. I'll use this cotton swab, so all these hinges like at the back here, okay, these would be fairly well used, like, you know, the crew would be climbing over these a bit. There's a grab handle there, another hinge there, and a little bracket. Okay, so you've got to keep dipping your bud into the powder. Okay, we go over these hinges on the toolbox a little bit, like so. Okay, this is one of those effects too, guys. You can overdo this fairly easy if you go too much like inwards from the edges, you can actually ruin this effect and just put too much on. But yeah, I'll keep going with that, and like I say, I'll build the tracks and stuff like that, and I'll start putting the gear on there. The other thing is, underneath here where the fueling goes, and like I was showing you before about putting those pastels on, all I do to neaten that up a little bit now is just go over it with a stiff brush and just brush up and down like that, and those powders are dried out a little bit now, and just makes that look a little bit more uniformed. Okay, and I'll go over that with a dry pastel powder, and once we get the tracks in there and once we get the flat coat on there, you won't even, you know, sort of hardly see much of that at all. The tracks are going to be our feature on here, plus our road wheels that are a different colour. It'll sort of catch the eye for something different. When you're doing this weathering too, guys, try and do some different things on either side, because you turn the tank around, there's something different on that side, you turn to the back, there's something different there, turn to the other side, there's something different there. Try and make it really interesting all the way around, okay, so it's not just one uniform thing all the way over. So I'll do that, and also with these fueling points here, there's two of them underneath there. What I'm going to do is use some Future Clear. I think in America you use the Future, here we use Johnson's floor polish or something like that it is. But also you can get fuel stain stuff. Now it does the same thing. If you use the Future, put some black paint in there, or put in like your smoke effect, like the clear smoke effect from Tamiya or Mr. Hobby or whatever, and just put some stains running down underneath in here, and then put some pastels over the top. You don't want to have just clear fuel stains down the side, because obviously as soon as they drove this thing, dust would have stuck straight to those oil stains. So put your oil on first, or your fuel on first, and then throw some dust on it so it sticks to it. The other place you want to do it is up around the top here, around these hatches, because quite often these guys used to have to get out and do maintenance on their tanks, and they'd spill bits and pieces on it, and obviously weren't into cleaning the things much. So I'm going to put a few of those little tiny stains. Don't do it too much on the back here, because again that can ruin the effect, because obviously I wouldn't leave big pools of it there, but there'd be, you know, dots and stuff around the edges of the doors and things like that where they're working. Like I say, I'll go around, pick out the tool details and things like that, and do the tracks, and we'll turn the camera back on, and we're getting close to finishing then. Okay guys, so we're up to our next stage now. I've got all the tracks on there now, and all I've done with the tracks is just give them a coat of, it's a German grey from Volatile, and it's not quite a German grey. To me it's very, very close to like a NATO black or something like that. Like it's not quite black, and it's probably a really, really dark rubber grey sort of thing, but I find it's a good colour for doing tracks with. So I've just given the tracks a coat with that at this stage. And I've just put a few little extras on the side. I've got some helmet brackets that I've put on the back of the toolbox here and hung the helmets. Put our jerry cans into the side here, things like that. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start weathering the tracks up. And I'm just going to show you how I do that. But what I'll do, I'll just do a little section on the front here so you can see what I do. And then I'll turn the camera off and do the rest of the tracks. And I'll come back and show you the end result. And also, while I've got you, I might do the fuel stains underneath, like underneath here where we've got our fuel access points. Okay, so all I do, off to the side here, I've just got some pastel powders, some weathering pastel powders. I've also got some track weathering fluids. And what I'll do is I'll go over with the track wash first, and as that dries down, then I'll start putting the pastel powders on. So I'll just turn the camera off till I just get all that stuff ready. Okay guys, so I've got my track wash here. It's an OK Interactive one, that guy there. Okay, they're an enamel wash, and you don't have to use a track wash. I mean, I've done this with just doing up like a rusty, really dark rusty oil wash with oil paints and white spirit, but all it is just like it says, is a wash. So you just put it on, let it soak all through your tracks like so. Now this stuff takes a couple of minutes to dry. It doesn't dry very fast. Being an enamel base, it just takes a little while to dry. Just be careful you don't get this stuff all up over the rest of the tank. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit down around the sides here while we've got the camera on. Okay, now I don't worry too much about getting right up underneath the guards at this point with this stuff here, because a lot of that stuff up underneath there, the track work, you're not really going to see much anyway. But when I put the weathering powders on, I definitely will get up underneath there as much as I can, just to cover up any bits that are too bright. But at this stage I'm just going around the track that's easy to get to basically, and just putting this wash down, making sure it gets in right through the whole track sort of thing. Nice around the back here, like so. Okay. Around the wheels. Okay, now in around these road tyres, doesn't matter if you get a little bit on the road tyres, because we're going to put dust on those anyway, so you're not really going to see it. It's just going to be covered in dust, so it will cover it up if you do get a little bit onto the road tyres. And the sprockets in the middle are going to be shined up with graphite powder or like a pencil or something like that, so it's not going to matter if you get any on the sprockets either. That will all be covered up eventually. Some down in there. So you've got it nice and well covered like so. Okay, now as that dries, or when that dries, all I tend to do is off to the side here, you see on the side of the camera, I've got some different weathering powder, some different colours, like different dusty colours. That this one here, like a more of a yellowy dusty colour. This one here's got sort of almost like a really light limey green sort of colour to it, and this one here like an ash colour. Now all I do, I mix all these in together at, different, to get different shades. I don't sort of put it all on in one shade, but all I'm going to do is, once that dries on there, is I'll be picking up a good brush load and putting it into the sprockets, like just crunch it in there. Then I'll get some white spirit and dab on there so that it sets it all onto the track. Now once it's set on the track and it's all dried out, I come back with a brush and just dry brush over so it knocks all the dirt off the top here, and it just leaves that dust and chalk down inside all the recesses. The idea is it's supposed to look like all the sand and stuff's caked up inside the tracks, but because it's driving in sand, it keeps all the outside and the high points all polished off. But that's all the process is, guys. It's not hard. It's a very easy technique, and at the end of it, you'll see it comes up not too bad. On the front here is a little bit different. I haven't sort of overdone that yet. I've got a little bit more to do on those, but that's different because it's actually not being driven on. They're just spare tracks off to the front. But actually, that's, I don't know, it's still a little bit tacky there. I was going to put the passels on there, but I don't like putting them on while this stuff is still wet, because it tends to stick to it and you'll never get it off. If you want to get rid of the effect and wash it out, it won't, because it's set with enamel. So I'll let that dry, and I will come back and show you me putting the powder on there and how I do it. And then I'll turn the camera off, I'll let it dry, come back, and then I'll dry brush it off. And also, while I've got you on this time, one of the things we can do is we'll show you the oil stains. So on the side, down underneath here, hopefully got enough light for you guys to be able to see. Might be able to pan the camera in a little bit maybe, like so. Okay, now there's a hatch here and a hatch here for our refueling points, and all I've got off to the side here is this stuff here, the OK Interactive, the engine oil. Okay, and it's got a glossy finish as it says. All right, and make sure you give it a good little bit of a stir, a good mix, because some of the stuff settles to the bottom of these bottles. Okay, now this is one of those effects, guys, that can be easily overdone. Okay, so just be a little bit careful putting this on. I use a brush like this with a bit of a point on it. Okay, and I'm just going to sort of put it around those recess areas, let it soak in there a little bit. Okay, get it all down in the recesses. Okay, and then just drag a little bit down. Now this is one of those things, try and again keep it uneven, don't make it too even. So this is only like fuel spills and things like that. I mean, they would have been a little bit careful when they were refueling, unless they were under fire or something, but they generally would have tried to be a little bit careful about it. So we don't want to overdo this effect too much. Okay, plenty in the recess there now. Drag it down a little bit. Like so, a bit much on that brush. We'll take a bit off so we can get some finer bits on it. Around to the sides. Like so. Drag it right down. Like that. Okay, put a bit more on this fella. Up here. A bit more around the hatches. Up here, like so. Now, with the other brush, while that's still wet, I'm just going to get some pastel powder and tap it on there, okay? And that's all it is just a tap, to tap that dusted stuff on there, blow it off, and that's the finish we end up with, guys. It ends up with a nice, it's sort of like a wet oil finish, but with dust stuck to it, because that's what would have happened. As soon as they drove off, the dust would have stuck in there. I could probably put a bit more on there. Actually, I probably will with that one, especially up around the top part here, like so. Blow it off, and that's what we end up with, guys. Okay. The other thing you can do with this stuff is they used to get like the bearings would leak on the road wheels, so you can do this on the road wheels as well. Put a few little streaks, coming off like so. But again, guys, don't overdo this effect. Okay, it can be overdone. I've seen it overdone, and it can ruin the look of it. I mean, if they had leaking bearings, it wasn't a lot, sort of thing, and it'd only be little streaks of it coming out like so. Okay, so you end up with a bit of that on there again. Because it's fresh oil or whatever, it's going to have dust stick to it, like so. Blow it off. Okay, like so. Okay, and that's what we end up with. Okay. So it's like, oil stains and fuel stains that it's got some dust right into it. We can do a little bit on our back panel here, where the guys would have been working on the engine compartment and things like that. Now this one really is like just fine spots of it, guys. Don't put a lot on this, just a couple little patches, and again, make it random. Don't make it too obvious, like so. A few little spots like that. Okay, get some powder again up on the back here that would have been prone to lots of dust. Okay, just add my brush in there a little bit. Okay, so you can see that's still got a bit of a wet effect to it, a bit of a glossy sort of finish in there, and you can tell that it's oil with dust stuck to it. Okay, guys, so that's how we do the oil stains, fuel stains and things like that. And that's all I'm going to do on that one. I'm not going to go too overboard. If it was something that was opened up and they're working on the engine, obviously I'd put a lot more on there, but we don't need to at this point. So what I'll do, I'll let that dry. Well, actually, it's not too bad there now. That's probably dry enough. I'll give it a go and we'll see what happens. I know we're doing these tracks. Okay, I'm just mixing up some powder here. Okay, and all I'm doing is putting it in there like so. Make sure there's plenty in there. Get it right down inside the tracks so there's heaps of powder in it. Okay, mix the powders in so there's a few different colours. And if I can find I haven't got my thinners here. Oh, here we go. We'll just use that. Just grab another brush to do it with. Okay, so all we do is just dab it with our thinners. That's not going to soak in very well because these thinners are watered down too much at the moment with something else. Okay, but what that'll do is just make all that pastel powder, all that weathering powder, soak right down in there, and as it dries it'll set it inside those tracks. Okay, now while it's wet, if you really want to sort of build it up, you can put more in there if you want while it's wet, and mush it down in there. But because this is a desert vehicle, I want the tracks to be reasonably clean. I don't want them too caked up because they got a lot of use in the sand, which kept them fairly well cleaned out anyway. So we don't want to overdo this too much at this point. Okay, like so, and I'm just going to let that dry off, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we dry brush that off and how we end up with that finished effect then. Okay guys, so we're at the point now where I've got all the dirt pushed down into the tracks. I've got some on that front, the spare tracks at the front there as well, as you can see, and on the main tracks over here. Okay, so all I do now is I use a stiff brush, and I'll try and keep this in focus for you while I do this. A bit of an awkward angle, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. Okay, all I do is just brush across like this to brush that dirt out. Okay, and what all that does is you don't push down on it too hard. All you're doing is sort of like a dry brushing, and what it does, it pushes the dust off all the high points. So it is very much like dry brushing, but you're actually taking material off rather than putting it on. Okay, and as you can see, it's starting to show up those links down inside the tracks there now. Okay, and that's the effect that we're after. Okay, and because, like I was saying before, this is a sand vehicle, I don't want to leave too much down in there. I want to take a fair bit of it out, because it would have been scrubbed out fairly well with sand, but it would have got caught in joints and left it a little bit grubby looking. But we don't want to go like make it too grubby looking. Okay, so as you see there now, that's the effect. And the next part is, this is pretty much the finishing part on these tracks. We can use, I'm just trying these new Q-tips. I'm going to see how this works. Okay, and all I've got is sort of graphite powder, okay? And I'm just going to run over those high points with the graphite powder on the Q-tip like so. And what that'll do, it'll polish them up, okay? It looks like they're polished metal then. Okay, and the same with down inside there on the teeth and so on, and on those high points down in the middle. This is why I wanted to use this Q-tip with the point on it, so I can get down inside there and polish it up. And you can see it's polished the teeth on that sprocket as well, which is excellent. That's exactly what we need to happen. Okay, and you can do this with a pencil too, guys. It just takes a bit longer to do it with a pencil. Sorry, out of shot there a little bit. All I was doing is just down some of these lower ones. You didn't really miss too much there. Okay, and that's pretty much all we're after. Okay, and I'll get him up here a little bit closer for you, like so. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Hopefully the light should be picking that shine up for you that's on those tracks. If not, hopefully you'll see it in the stills anyway when I do some nice still shots of everything when I've got it finished. And that's pretty much it, guys. The only thing I'm going to do after this is put a coat of dull coat over this. Now what could happen, and it has happened to me in the past, is going to depend on these pigments. The metal, or when I put the dull coat on, it might actually take the shine off that graphite powder that we put on there. If that happens, I'll just redo the graphite powder. I'm also going to use that graphite powder on some high points around the tank, like up around the top of the turret here, you know, just on edges and corners and things like that, down beside the hatch up here, hinges and things like that. So I'm just going to go around and pick those out as well, and that'll be pretty much it, guys. She'll be finished then. I'm not going to worry about doing the base in this video. I'll do that in another video on bases, rather than like keep going with this project for too long. I have been working on one of the crew members here. I'm going to have a crew in there because I have provided a crew in this kit, and they're quite a nice little crew actually. So it's going to be set up pretty much the way the crew is meant to be. This guy here, and there's going to be another one on the other side there, a guy down passing a bottle up to him and so on. But again, I'll do those in another video, and we'll go through figure painting and stuff like that in 35th scale. Pretty much, that's pretty much about all there is to this one, guys. I've got on the back here, I put the wire ropes on. They were pretty much just painted the same way the tracks were. The exhaust was just different rust colours dabbed on with a sponge, and leaving bits of paint. You can see in here bits of the original colour that have just sort of hung onto the exhaust. They haven't all flaked off, which used to happen sometimes. I've overdone the metal finish on the chains up here. I'm going to dull that down a little bit as well. But other than that, that'll be pretty much it, guys, and I'll take some still shots for you. For me, hobby's supposed to be fun, and that's what I do, guys. I have fun, but I do like to get nice results, so that's one of the things. And you know, if I had ruined this tank, I'll put it aside and I'll try again another time. It doesn't drive me to distraction if I get things wrong, and it does happen. I mean, it happens to all modelers, you know, except you're probably your elites like Meg and things like that. But anyway, guys, I'll finish this off. I'll take some stills of it, and that'll be our video complete. I really hope you enjoyed this build. Make sure you sub below, leave any comments that you want. If anything needs improvement or you've got better tips than I have, please let me know, guys. As, like I say, I'm not the be all and end all of modelling. No one really is. So, hey guys, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.